types of fun. Yeah. Type 1 is like very predictable fun. Like, I don't know, going to the movies or something. Type 2, which I feel like is competing for me, is like in the moment, it's not actually that fun. It kind of sucks. But after the fact, you're like, I'm really glad I did that. That was like kind of fun in a weird way. So that was how I experienced it. I was like, felt super hard. I had no idea what I was doing. But I think because I competed growing up in soccer, that feeling was something I had missed. And I was like, I should definitely try this again.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
Well, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Relentless Project. I'm Lopez, your host, and I'm here with Claire Butterfield out of Stout PGH, representing. I'm not biased, but I am. I'm so glad you're on because you're one of those people that we were talking about earlier. I've seen you. People have talked about you. I don't know anything like your story, you know. And shout out Britt because she put this together. She's like, she's matchmaker Britt.
She really is.
Podcast host and guests, fights, whatever. But she's like, you need to get her on. I'm like, make it happen. Like, could you make it happen? So she did. Here we are.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about, one thing I like to do is kind of get to know the person before we get into all the fun stuff, because it helps people understand like why you do what you do or what got you into this. So it's my understanding you're from Pittsburgh, but you're a traveler to the Pittsburgh area.
I am not born in Pittsburgh. My mom's side of the family is from Texas, so I was born in Houston, actually.
H-Town, right?
I
That's
know.
what they call it, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I have no memory of it. We moved to Pittsburgh when I was 5, so I pretty much consider myself from Pittsburgh when people ask, but have a bunch of family still in Texas, so it's like...
You're from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, pretty much from Pittsburgh.
You're from Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And what, if you don't mind me asking, what brought your family to Pittsburgh? Nothing against Pittsburgh, but like my family's from Puerto Rico. And we ended up in Erie. And I'm like, out of all the places, you got Florida, you got the Carolinas, you got Texas, you know, California's huge on the map. Like, you pick Erie.
Right.
Like, why?
So random.
I could have been a Southern baby.
Exactly. Yeah, it was for my dad's job. He was in Houston for work. We moved to Tampa for a short period of time too, and then up to Pittsburgh. So, he traveled a lot for sales, worked at Cutler Hammer, and just got relocated to Pittsburgh randomly, and that's how I ended up here.
That's always interesting when I talk to people, how they end up in Pittsburgh. You either have like people who never left.
Oh, yeah.
Or people who've traveled the world and ended up
just
here. And
randomly.
I'm like, you've lived in all these places and you chose Pittsburgh.
Yeah. It's interesting now with like Carnegie Mellon, some universities.
That is true.
All walks of life coming to Pittsburgh. So.
Well, and then there was the steel industry here. So that brought a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it is like a big melting pot of a place. Erie was that way too, though, which I don't understand.
Oh, interesting.
They have Erie insurance now, but like before that was big. What brought people to Erie? I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, wait, how did you end up there then?
Well, that's a story. That's a long story short. Mama did things she shouldn't have been doing. Miracle was born. That's me, for those who don't know. And then she was given a choice of be one way or leave, and she left to Erie. And the reason she picked Erie was because I guess a lot of her friends from Puerto Rico moved to Erie.
Whoa.
But why?
I don't know.
You know what? I'm gonna start getting all them on the episodes because, like,
Yeah.
I could have been from Florida. Why did you pick Erie, Pennsylvania?
I was gonna say, such a cold place.
It's
Drastic
cold.
difference.
It's gloomy. It is a up and coming city, but it's so small and so I travel to California a lot, and when I'm over there, I'll tell them, I'm from Erie, PA. I say PA, and like I guess Pennsylvania is the only place where you say the acronym of the state and not.
I've noticed that too.
The abbreviation of the
right.
state rather than the state. And they're like, PA, what's that? And I'm like, Pennsylvania. And they're like, where's Erie? Like, you never heard of Lake Erie? Like,
I know. It's an easy one.
so you would think, but it's a very small city. What got you into, oh, first, before we get into that, because did you start jiu-jitsu or did you start your career? Like the path of your career first?
Career first, yeah.
What got you into... What's it? UX designer, if you don't mind me asking.
It's
like
a great
web,
question.
like web
Yeah, it's
design.
in the technology world, software space. I actually studied industrial design in school, which is more of like traditional product design. So think like shoes, cars, anything you would use.
Did you use
purchase
the
from a
CAD?
store. I did.
Or is it AutoCAD?
Yeah, AutoCAD. I was terrible at it. I kind of
Nightmares.
hated it. Such a nightmare. But I had an internship after I graduated college in Anderson, South Carolina, super small town, but worked designing Home Depot tools, actually, which is kind of interesting.
Oh.
And they, at the time, were just starting to get into like Internet of Things. You need an app for whatever you're using. And so they stuck me on like a mobile application project, which I think of whenever people say product design now, it's more in that space of digital stuff, and then thinking through how people use the application, which is the user experience part of things.
I was going to say, so you're more like the,
yeah.
So user experience encompasses software, website.
Yeah, very broad.
Now, does that include like more hands-on things, like how someone accesses the product?
Yeah, it definitely can. I think initially when I started, I was very much focused on just the interface, almost like a graphic designer. Now my role is broad, to your point, where it's like we're thinking about how do you market to people? How are they interacting with your company? And then as a touch point, it's like, oh, you also have like a software tool that people use, and thinking through how they interact with it as well. So kind of like anything that related to your company that a customer or client could experience, trying to think through what that should be.
So I went to school for marketing. I got a bachelor's in marketing, minor. I'm going to go flex real quick. No, minor in communications. And then the most interesting part of college was my certificate in advertising.
Oh,
Right? Because everyone thinks, when I think marketing, I think sales.
yeah.
And people have been made to think that marketing is sales. But like school blew my mind in the sense of what, like we were working with, you know, all kinds of different elements to bring a product or a service to the consumer. So marketing is from how it's designed, how it's incorporated, how we're advertising it, how it's utilized, how it's sold, to how it's used. It's the entire thing. And
Exactly. Yeah. People don't realize, I think, how much goes into it. So you're spot on.
How much of your work is marketing, or are you more on the taking what's there and then applying it to the consumer?
More the latter. So I actually just got a new job over the summer.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Add hand clap
sounds here. Sound afterwards, right? And so it's really interesting. It's one thing that I like about design and user experience design is you can kind of like plop in anywhere. So I work for a law firm now, which is like know nothing about pretty much, but they have a tool that their attorneys use. So I'm just on like a really small internal team that thinks through the ways that attorneys have to get work done and trying to turn it into software. So it just makes their jobs easier, basically.
That's interesting. And what industry were you working before?
I was in agency world, which built a lot of great experience, but it's a lot. I was working fully remote here in Pittsburgh for an agency in Indianapolis, doing the same thing. Like, we worked with all size companies, so startups all the way to like big enterprise companies, pretty much doing the same thing. Like, they have some sort of software need, they're trying to figure out a problem. Maybe they have like customers coming to them complaining about certain things, and so we help them figure out like what's the issues, what direction should we take the product, and then designing it as well.
And so was that, like in the law industry, or was it a completely different?
Completely different.
That's so interesting to me how your, I guess, focus remains similar, but the end consumers are completely different.
Yeah, it's fun. It keeps it interesting for sure.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
And I love talking to people because, you know, when you think like, oh, what do you do for a living? People, it tends to be like similar things, right? Like nurse, doctor, cop, like all the big, like I got the big 10, or I'm in, you know, if you work here, if you're in Pittsburgh, it's like Dick's Corporation.
Yeah.
Or like, but then there's something so niche, like I'm in the user experience software. Like I don't think I know anyone who does that. Well, now I have one.
Now you have one. I know.
Or like oil industry, or I work for the electric company. But like when I talk to someone, they have like such a unique thing they do for a living. I'm like trying to like, tell me more. What do you do with this? What do you do with this?
Yep.
So that's cool. What got you into BJJ?
Man.
That's the meats and potatoes. No, but
Exactly. So I moved back to Pittsburgh after that year-long internship. So finished up college, Anderson, South Carolina for a year. And then when that wrapped up, I was like, what am I going to do next? I don't have a job. I moved back to Pittsburgh. My family's still here. And the guy I was dating at the time had done like some boxing in high school, I think, and like the UFC. I like knew nothing about it. So we were watching it one time and he was like, oh, do you think you would ever do something like that? There was like a women's UFC fight going on. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think I would want to get punched in the face or anything. But martial arts seemed really interesting as like a concept, and I respected it a lot. And he was like, well, like if you watch them get taken down to the ground and grapple, there's this thing called like Brazilian jiu-jitsu that they're doing. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
So he was the typical man during UFC.
Yep, exactly.
I feel like we all do that. Go to the ground.
Yeah.
So you're watching this?
Just watching, and then fast forward maybe like a month, I was sitting at work and he shoots me a text message and he was like, I was looking at some schools and it turns out there's this place called Stout. They're like a Henzo Gracie affiliate, which he had to explain to me what that even was. I was like, okay, cool. So they seem legit. It was down the street, or at least close enough to where I worked. It was above Costume World at the time, so still in the Strip District, but a little bit closer to downtown where I worked. And I was like, it seems convenient enough. I should just like check it out after work one day.
Full send, huh?
Full send, yeah. Showed up on like a Wednesday or Thursday night, I think, and just like was immediately hooked. It was so much fun. I remember the front desk guy, I think they had some sort of promotion going on where it's like first 3 classes are free. They might do something like that now too. And
I think it's the first 10 days now.
Okay, no way. Okay, yeah, so a similar thing. I remember wrapping up class and he was like, what'd you think? I was like, it's so much fun. I had a great time. He was like, all right, well, you got like a couple more classes. You can try it out and stuff. And I was like, you can just sign me up. Like, put me on for the month-to-month schedule.
She said,
he was like, okay, I guess so.
Take my money.
Yep, here you go. So I haven't looked back.
How long ago did you start? How long have you been training? Because you're a brown belt now, right?
Brown belt now. I just hit 7 years in November. Yeah.
Dang,
I know.
girl, that's what's
flew
up.
by. It really has.
I'm like a 2-year blue belt.
Yeah.
Well, no. Yeah. which I guess that's normal. I don't know why I'm complaining about that. I
No,
also
it's
have been
good.
off 5 months for my
Yeah.
my meniscus surgery. So technically I'm a year and a half blue belt. So
Exactly.
with no stripes. No, but no, that's so interesting to me. It's interesting how people get into the sport, and one thing we're going to talk about in a little bit is like especially like women getting into this sport. Like it's something you see happening a lot now.
It's very exciting.
And I love it, but it's scary because women already have like this like this
Drive.
this drive, and now we're going to put them in MMA. It's like great. But my first, I talked about this a few times. I always like dabbled in grappling and jiu-jitsu. And in my younger years, I entertained a couple amateur fights. Not for me. Learned quickly. I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like I love to train. Oddly enough, I grew up fighting in the street, but like doing this willingly for fun, I was just like, this sucks. Like I'm getting punched in the face and I want to kill the person across from me. Like I don't enjoy this. And then people go in there like, so I'm like Josh Visoka just put a post. Hey, want to get one more before the end of the year. What's up? Like,
whoa.
I'm just like,
So impressive.
Yeah, that's
I have so much
else.
respect. I don't know how they do it, but good for them.
It's
Man.
interesting. So when I would train at a jiu-jitsu gym, they would ask me like, do you have any experience? And I would always say no, because I don't have any formal consecutive experience. And I don't want to go in there with someone with a chip on their shoulder, because I tend to be a bigger dude. So they look at me and they're like, I'm a prove jiu-jitsu works on him.
Yep.
Don't do that. So I go to Stout. I go to other gyms to train and kind of fill it out. And I won't mention their names, but give jiu-jitsu a horrible name, right? And I'm in there. One gym in particular, they're like, hey, do you have any jiu-jitsu experience? I say no. And they're like, all right, well, normally we wouldn't let you participate in the live rolls, which, okay, to each their own. I'm like, all right, that's fair. So we're doing technique, and then they're like, all right, we're going to situational live roll for 5 minutes. And I'm like, well, do I participate? Do I not participate? Dude looks at me, he's like, you're good. I'm like, okay. Dude literally tries to fucking kill me. Like, he mounts me, and he's probably like 150, 160 pounds. So I just like pick him up and throw him off. And then, dude, he like probably almost broke my nose. He just like came on, just got super aggressive. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like trying to fight for my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what's going on because I don't train jiu-jitsu. So I end up going to Stout. I'm like, I don't like that place.
Yeah.
This isn't fun.
Not coming back here, no.
So I go to Stout and, meet everyone. And I do the 10-day trial, and it's like 10 consecutive days you can come. My first live roll after fundamentals was with a 120-pound female. I wish I could remember who she was.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen her in a while. And I was fighting for my life. 120 pounds. Like, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
They say pick partners, pick a group, pick your teammate or whatever. So I'm looking around. I'm new, so I don't know anyone. Everyone's kind of like knows each other. Like, hey, yeah. This girl looks at me. I look at her, and I'll admit, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to get stuck with her. Like, I don't want to hurt her.
Yeah.
Who the fuck am I to say I don't want to hurt her? And this was no-gi, so obviously we have no idea what
Belt
rank,
level,
belt levels. So my ego got the best of me. I'm like, I don't want to hurt her, and I wasn't trying to like flex, but I'm like, wow, she's 120 pounds. I'm 230. Boy, did she work me. We started on the ground. I'm on my feet. I don't know why. Like, obviously being untrained, I get on my feet. She's latched on to me. I'm like removing one arm, and then another one comes, and then her leg is like, and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why am I standing? Let me go to my knees. Go to my knees. She takes my back, and then next thing you know, I'm on the ground, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like panicking, and then timer ends, and I'm just like, what just happened? She's like, oh, good job. And I'm like, can't breathe, and the room is closing in on me.
Right.
And right there, I was like, man, this sucks. But I'm going to come tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then I came again. And
look at you now.
if I ever see you, it's on. No.
Yeah. Right.
I'm trained now.
Yeah.
No, but I think jiu-jitsu is one of the best equalizers.
Yeah.
In self-defense, and it's one of the things, like it's a low barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can come with the street clothes.
Yep.
And it's something that you can apply almost instantly. When I train people in my department, obviously we use jiu-jitsu fundamentals and principles, and we use this one technique to pry an arm out. It's essentially like a shoulder pin on the ground to pry someone's arm out. And I showed it to one of my sergeants who, he can't even walk right. He's 2 left feet.
Oh no.
But I'm like, this work, I was like, if you apply this, think principle, don't think like step 1, step 2, think principle. Mm-hmm. If you can apply this, it'll work. Like 3 days later, he comes in, he's like, I used that I used it. I'm like, wait, for real? He's like, yeah, and I got his arms right out. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Dude, he was so excited. Yeah. I got so excited. I'm like, oh, dude, that's dope. Like,
it really is. Yeah, it's definitely a motivator. It's fun whenever it finally does click. Just that, like, yes, I finally got it. It's so hard, but I can do it now.
What age did you start? And then I'm not asking her age for those people, and don't
You'll be
add
able to,
the number she gave you earlier.
I was going to say, you can do the math, which
delete.
I'm also not shy about my age, but I started at 25.
Well, you look 25, so you shouldn't be shy about your age.
Thank you. Thanks.
How do you feel about the age you started? Because I go to the gym and I see 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds starting, and I started, 3 to 4 years ago. Yeah, I'm counting on my hands. So I started like at 27 or 28.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, I started late, I feel like. But like, you're thinking you started late at 25, or do you feel you started at the right time? Like,
it's really interesting. I think my perspective has changed on it a little bit. So when I started, I really just wanted to go for like the exercise and to meet people. So age like wasn't really on my radar, and I saw people in the room that definitely looked older than me and were younger than me too. So I figured like, oh, cool, seemed to fit in, seemed like the right age. But it wasn't until I got more into competition that the thought was like, dang, this would have been awesome if I was like a teenager or something, or like found out jiu-jitsu as a kid, because those people, man, absolute beasts. Like watching our kids' classes, I'm like, these kids are going to be so scary in like 5 years. But the thing that I also really like about jiu-jitsu, and I think you were talking about this too, it's like you can really do it at any age, and it's just maybe adjusting what you're trying to get out of it. Like even as a competitor, they have masters categories. So based on your age range, going against people that are your similar age that also want to compete, which, makes it cool, and kind of just makes me think like you can pivot and make jiu-jitsu work for you at any age, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like everyone has their own goals for jiu-jitsu. Like me, I got into jiu-jitsu for work, right? Like I want to be able to control another human and minimize injury to myself, to them, to those around me, right? Like that goal is a little different than someone who wants to win IBJJF Worlds, or someone who wants to make this their career, and or someone who, I have a few friends who started jiu-jitsu because of, females who have been in unfortunate situations, and they told themselves that will never happen again.
Yeah.
And they took it upon themselves. So, like, those people have a different motivation factor, a different drive than someone who comes in and like, I want to lose 10 pounds in a couple months. Like, both valid reasons, both great reasons.
Very different
experiences, right? Like, you roll with this one, and you're going to be like, why are you trying to kill me?
Right.
Like, I'm not. I'm training.
Exactly.
You roll with this one, and they're like laughing and fun, and you're like,
whatever.
Yeah,
Chit-chatting.
So you never know why someone started, which is why when I started this podcast, I was like, do I want an MMA heavy? And then the more people I spoke to, I was like, everyone has a different reason. And even if you have the same reason, it's a different motivation. And you can pull stuff from everyone's stories. And it's always interesting to me why someone got into it. You were watching UFC.
Just randomly.
And now you compete at a high level and you weren't even watching UFC for yourself.
No.
You were like kind of just there.
It's kind of like, oh, check it out. Why not?
So it's so interesting to me. What caused you to go from this is fun, this is enjoyable, to I want to start like competing, making it a point to compete?
It's been a slow process. I think in my head, a few things. I am definitely a competitive person, but when I started jiu-jitsu, didn't even realize you could compete, I guess. Like, I understood, like, there's definitely professional people that do this, but I think maybe like 6 or 9 months into training, I want to say Sage told me, they were like, we're doing an in-house and you can just sign up. I was like, I'm like a 3-stripe white belt. I can just sign up and do a competition. Like, yeah, you should check it out. Like, if you have any interest in competing, this is like the perfect one just to get your feet wet. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try it. And after that first one, was exhausted. Like, definitely had the adrenaline dump.
Oh,
it was brutal.
Did you taste blood?
Thankfully, no. Have you had that happen?
Oh, yeah. Like, when you run for a long time, you kind of get that,
yeah.
I don't know, iron or whatever in your lung. I get that every time I roll.
Oh, no.
It has been
That's
a
so
while.
funny.
I'm just like, what? I was like, is the room closed again for anyone else? And everyone's like, no, one more round. I'm like,
oh my God.
I am going to die.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way in my first competition. Sometimes still do. But it was one of those interesting things. Like, I don't know if you've heard people talk about different types of fun. Like, type 1 is like, oh, something you expect to be fun. Like, I don't know.
Types of fun.
Types of fun, yeah. Type 1 is like very predictable fun. Like, I don't know, going to the movies or something. Type 2, which I feel like is competing for me, is like, in the moment, it's not actually that fun. It kind of sucks. But after the fact, you're like, I'm really glad I did that. That was like kind of fun in a weird way. So that was how I experienced it. I was like, felt super hard. I had no idea what I was doing. But I think because I competed growing up in soccer, that feeling was something I had missed. And I was like, I should definitely try this again. Kind of just worked out, especially at those lower belt levels. There's a lot of local competition. So I think a couple months later, I did like a grappling industries and just sort of kept building up the momentum. I also really like how competition, especially at that point, served a few purposes. It's like, at that time, there weren't a ton of women that trained. So it was a chance to go against people my own size and skill level and actually get a sense for like, how am I really doing? Because, I mean, at white belt in particular, you're just sort of getting beat up and trying not to die every class, but very survival mode.
Call it the survival belt.
Exactly. But it's cool because you like, when you're going against people in the same boat, you realize, hey, I'm actually kind of picking up some technique here and doing things well, things that you might not necessarily see at like an open mat because, again, you're just trying not to die. So I thought that part was beneficial and a good way to help me like actually identify certain gaps that may have been harder to figure out just doing open mat or doing class. But maybe to get to your original question, which is sort of like the tipping point from I'll just kind of like casually compete here and there to being a bit more serious about it. I think definitely developed at blue belt. I had a few people that I feel like pushed me. So thinking about, I had done a couple of local things like Naga, grappling industries, and then there was Fight to Win that was coming to Pittsburgh. And a few of my friends were doing it, and I was like, it seems so intimidating. You're up on like this big stage, everyone's watching you. And my friend Andrew Nobu, who doesn't train at Stout anymore, he moved out to, he's in San Francisco now, but he was like, I'm a blue belt. I'm going to do it. You should just like go out there and do it. And I was a pretty new blue belt. I was like, all right, like
Whatever.
I'll give it a shot, I guess. I'm like terrified, but I was like, if you're going to do it, I'll do it. And similar thing, type 2, like so nervous leading up to it. But after the fact, I was like, that was actually really, really awesome. And just like, again, kept finding new tournaments to do at, I think, purple belt. It was really where I was like, okay, I think I'm doing pretty good at this, I guess, and might be worth just like seeing how far I can take it. So it is one of those things where like realizing I have the full-time job and can't like do this professionally, it's been less
Says
of like
who?
True, that's a great
Says
point.
who? Because you're doing it. Like,
So I'm technically doing it, which
that's
is
the thing that
crazy.
blows my mind. You have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like, and that's when I love when people, there's so many things I want to pull from this, but when people are like, oh, I don't have time, it's like, do you know the people in the gym? Like, that, not all of them just go and train. They all have lives. They have, you know, social lives. They have families. They have careers. They have, it's like, if they can do it, I promise you can do it.
Yeah.
Like, everyone gets the same 24 hours in a day. No one, like, Claire, she's an awesome girl. She gets 25 hours today.
Right.
Like, everyone has the
Bonus.
same amount of time, you know? It's just,
Yeah.
how do you utilize your time? What's important to you? What is a priority to you?
Exactly.
Do you think your involvement in high-level sports prior to jiu-jitsu fueled your competitive? Because you said, like, you get to feel this again. I think that's something that a lot of us have. Like, I played, you know, I played football, baseball. You know, I got into MMA because I was like, man, like, I need something. Like, there's nothing driving me to pushing me to do it. You know, there's not that factor for me anymore, that competitive spirit. And then I just didn't enjoy getting punched in the face for fun. Like, so I was like, I gotta find something else.
Yeah.
I gotta find something else. I did good at it. People were trying to push me to do it, but to me, I'm like, it's not type 1 or type 2 fun for me.
Right.
It's just like,
fun.
I'm in there, I'm pissed off, I'm miserable. Luckily, I've won those, but then when I won my amateur fights, I leave, and I'm still in this like, just like that mode I put myself in to be in this cage, right? Like, for me, I'm not like Lucas, who is laughing in the ring while he's getting what appears to be choked, you know, or like that. I can't do that. There are people who can. I admire them. It's like, it wasn't fun for me. There was nothing there, you know, obviously policing helps with that, like, not competitive, but that like drive to like, I don't get to skip the gym today because there's someone out there who will try to take my life, or someone that I'm responsible for. And because I'm a little sleepy today, you know, I'm going to take away from where I should be. No, I'm going to train. Like, that's my driving factor.
Yeah.
So do you think your high level sports like kind of fueled that competition, and what did that bring back for you? Were you able to connect those?
Yeah. I feel like for me, since I, growing up, played soccer pretty much as like a young kid, and that being so central to my life, and I think it's just making this connection now kind of interesting, like full-time job, being in school, and then now kind of being a competitor, and soccer being like literally my waking life outside of school. I don't know, it almost built like this routine that I was missing as an adult. And so I think now with competition, obviously there's like wanting to just go to the gym and get better and see people, which I love too. Like, I have a bunch of really good friends, and the community at Stout and just in jiu-jitsu in general is awesome. But having the competition itself set up as like a goal you have to work towards, it's interesting how just that journey leading up to the competition is so gratifying, regardless of the result of the competition itself. And I think that's definitely something that was just built into me from competitive soccer for a long time, is like working up towards something.
So what you're saying is you've always had that dog in you.
I think so.
You're so nice and so like, and in my mind I'm like, yeah, she got that dog in her. And you're out here like, it fueled me.
Yeah,
And she got that dog in her. It's so interesting to me. Like if you were walking in the street, no one bats an eye, which is kind of sad how society has become, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Like if you see Sage, like when I first saw Sage, please don't choke me for this. I was like, dude's a nerd. And he is a nerd who can kill you.
Yep. Exactly.
That's a fact. He's like, or Warren, you know,
Yeah.
Warren, like every time I talk to him, he's so nice. And like, he just like, you know, walks around to like, just, you know, minds his own business.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I would have looked at him, I would like, do you need help? No. That was a dig, Warren. Do you need help crossing the street, sir? He's going to be like, hey, Ish, open mat. I want to show you
Come
something.
on over here. Yeah.
I'm going to break your other knee.
Yep.
No, super nice. That was a dig on purpose. But I love how jiu-jitsu gives you this advantage that it's like a hidden advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Because you went from watching not even jiu-jitsu, watching the UFC, which utilizes jiu-jitsu, to you just had recent success at IBJJF No-Gi Pans, right? Like, Like,
Yeah.
Come on, like you gotta elaborate. How was that?
Yeah.
When did you make the decision to compete in that? Because there's one thing to do local tournaments and, you know, in-house tournaments.
Yeah.
Nothing against these other promotions, but like all the stuff that most people who train jiu-jitsu seriously, they do. Like you decided to go from fun to competitive, from competitive to serious, from serious to the big stage.
Yeah. I feel like there's a few things. So another part of, especially when I got to around purple belt, thing that I feel like made competing at like the high level easier is people on the team, I guess, or like other competitors, honestly. Like I would say Jess was a big motivator. She's like such a go-getter, and
I feel like she competes more than she trains. Like she competes like
out there all the time, which is so impressive. And so having just more people to go compete with is really exciting. Like going out as a group is a lot of fun. Having that community. I, as a blue belt, went and did Worlds for IBJJF. So they have it obviously for all the belt levels. And I'm trying to think of how I even decided to. I knew it was definitely a group thing. Like it wasn't me just off on my own. Like I'm just going to go do this massive tournament by myself. But I knew a couple of people at the gym were going. I think a couple guys from Mat Factory were going too. And I was like, might as well. Like it would be a lot of fun just to try and see what that next level looks like.
Like why not? Kind of.
Yeah, kind of why not?
That's so funny. Why not to me is like, can I eat Oreos? Why not? Why not to you is Worlds competition. Okay, we're on different levels. I get it.
Man, well, I think it's maybe just the mindset I've had around competing this whole time, which is, so even though having the full-time job can be challenging, there's kind of this like nice luxury of, at the end of the day, if I don't win or if this is like my last competition ever, there's other things going on that I can still do and feel fulfilled in. So when you have like that lower stress around it, like it's not like I'm not a professional doing it. I don't depend on doing it.
But you are a professional doing it.
It's going to stick. You just keep telling me this and it's going to stick for me.
No, you got what? Imposter syndrome.
You might be right.
Must be
that.
a women's of stout thing. Is it women's of stout or stout? Yeah, women's of stout.
Yeah,
Isn't
women's
that
of
the group?
stout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be a women's of stout thing. All of you have imposter syndrome.
Oh no.
It's like, I don't do this you do it professionally and you do it at a high level. And I think it's important to reiterate that, but it's interesting that you say it like that. Like the stress level's low because you have other things going on that also fill you, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I was having this conversation. Who was I having this conversation? I've had it with a few people, but we really honed in on it David Kelly.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched that one, but he was talking about like, he's a vocalist for Tethra, which is a metalcore band.
Whoa.
Oh, dude. So funny story about that. I was listening to his music before I knew who he was.
No way.
And then he was on the podcast. Actually, his original band that he was in wrote the Relentless Project intro song.
No way.
Talk about full circle.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But we were talking about, he's like, I can give you the body you want, and which will give you confidence. But when that body is gone, what do you have left? Like what is there?
Yeah.
Like I can give you the confidence for what though? Like what do you need confidence for? And he talks about how he dials in with his clients and then really digs into their why. Like, why are you doing this? And it kind of seems like you already kind of had that figured out with jiu-jitsu. And it's like, when you can't do jiu-jitsu anymore, like, what do you have left?
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you building with jiu-jitsu? Community, like all this stuff. Like, that's all the important stuff. Jiu-jitsu is a tool. It's an amazing tool, but I think we get so honed in on like, I want to win. I want to do that. You skip all the best parts of the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I think it definitely plays into how I've thought about competition as well. Because I'm also, back to the age thing, aware that I still compete in the adult division, but being 32, I could technically bump up to older age divisions. And so, yeah, I guess it's like not needing to put that added extra stress on this one thing makes it a little bit easier to just go and say, like, why not try the next level? Because what is there to lose? At the end of the day, I'll still be able to go back to the gym, enjoy training, enjoy the people I'm with. I'm still learning, which is super important and kind of the whole purpose of doing the competition in the first place. Obviously, winning is awesome, but it's just like the challenge of it, which is the most fun part, I think.
Yeah, and I tried when I talk to people like a couple of stout guys just took L's at the last 247.
Yeah,
and a good friend of mine who's been on the podcast, Devin, took an L at his boxing. He had a belt, professional 4-0 with 4 knockouts, fighting for a belt. Outcome didn't come out his way, and it's so easy to get put into this. Like, I failed, and like he takes he does this with such a passion that he takes it to the heart.
Yeah.
And I'm like with him, I'm like trying to lift his head up. I'm like, dude, stop apologizing for losing. Like, stop apologizing. I'm sorry, I let you guys. Stop apologizing. Like you and there was a whole, which we won't get into here but like the way he lost was kind of like, we didn't find out till later that some stuff may have happened that was not called, and now there's a big thing. But I'm like, at the end of the day, like, you lost. What, you're gonna sit here and you're entitled to feel how you feel because you came out to compete. You went in there, gave everything. The outcome didn't come out how you expected it to. You are entitled to feel how you feel, sad, angry. Like, that's fine. But keep in mind, like, where does this go?
Yeah.
Are we going to sit and stew, or are we going to get back to the drawing board? Are we going to quit boxing? No, that's not an option, right? Okay,
right.
So boom, we'll remove that. You want to sit here and just feel sorry for yourself for how long? How much time? And like, some people may call that insensitive, but when you're in that, I've been in that moment, I've been in that position many times, right?
Yeah.
When a good friend who I trust, who, I believe in, when they hit me with, hey, you're entitled to feel this way, but how long are you going to pity yourself? How long? Give me a time limit. It kind of forces you to go, if I tell you 30 minutes, I'm acknowledging, like, there's an end to this.
Yeah.
If I tell you 2 days, I'm acknowledging there's an end to this. So it's kind of like a reverse psychology. Hey, how long are we going to sit and stew on this?
Yep.
1 hour. 1 hour. Cool.
Just get it out of your system. Right.
Now it's in your mind like, I gave myself an hour.
Yep. I have my time.
I have
exactly.
my time. Like you're entitled to it.
Yeah, as you should be, because it's tough. Like, I go back and forth all the time. You've put so much work into it, and it's, very disappointing whenever you don't necessarily get the result that you wanted to see. So I'm like, you get the day. You can kind of mope around for the day, and then we're going to try and figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's taken me a long time to get there, but like with anything, the older I get and the more mature I've become, I've realized, like, this is corny, we hear on all the podcasts, but it's all about the process, right? Like, no matter how good, how bad, it's the process. And talking with competitors and musicians and artists and people who are outside of this box of society, it's all a common theme of like, we're all in a journey, right? Like, and some of us like to skip that journey because we're focused on the end result. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say I completely disregard the end result, but for me, it's like end result here. Boom. Okay. That's where I want to be. How am I going to get there? Reverse engineer. And then I'm like, when I get here, I'm going to be talking about all of this journey, right? When you're there at the top or at the head of it, whatever it is, what do you talk about when you're there? How you got there? All the lessons you've learned. We glorify the process when we've made it. But when we're in the process of making it, we want to skip over the process. It's like, and I know that's a tough concept to grasp, but like, I call it in the mix. Like, right now we're living the days that we're going to be talking about. We're living in our best days, if you so choose for it to be.
Yeah.
You know, like I was telling my buddy, I'm like, when you're going to take losses in boxing, like it's inevitable. When you're competing at this level, there is someone who is better than you or has a better day. It's going to happen. Would you rather learn your lessons now, fix everything up, do what you got to do, and then get to that level? Or would you rather skate to that level and then get knocked down because you've experienced that hardship at the top of that? Because when you make it, you're going to be thinking back like, man, I remember after my first loss, it was for a belt. Like, you're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
You're going to glorify that loss because it drove you to, and it pushed you to be better to get you to where you are today.
Yep, exactly. And those can be sometimes the most interesting stories, like a good comeback. Man, like, what's better than that?
Everyone loves a comeback story. Like, just imagine you're 50-0 with 50 knockouts and everything was easy. You're there. You're like, how'd you get here? I won every fight. Oh, cool. Okay. Like, there's not much meat and potatoes there.
Right.
You're just like, okay. Like, and you can tell there's some people who have gotten there. Mm-hmm. Mayweather. But no, I'm just saying. No, but like, there's people who, like, it's just like, oh, you're a good fighter, but you lack everything else in life, and like, people hate you. Like, is it worth it?
Right.
Maybe for some, or not. Like, I have different goals and ambitions than some. How did you prepare for your competition at Worlds? Like, what did you have the same mindset going in as other competitions? You're like, I'm just going to keep it like what I know, what I'm comfortable with, or did you change things up to prepare for a different level of competing?
So the first time I did Worlds had been leading up to that, maybe like a couple months before actually being like, all right, I'm going to go do it. And this is like the Blue Belt Worlds. Had been training gi and no-gi pretty consistently. I actually was more of a gi person, and then did Worlds. At some point at Purple Belt, I was like, I would really like to do ADCC, do the trials, because that in my mind was like, all right, I've done Worlds. What's like the next level up that I should try out? And so that was like the first point where I was like, all right, I need to actually train a little bit differently and just focus on no-gi leading up to that. And so now when I get ready for competitions, and like in particular this past competition, Pans, in October, my day-to-day actually doesn't look too different. It might mean trying to get in more sessions or showing up more days of the week. But pretty much just showing up to classes, going to open mats, and then trying to stay focused on my A game pretty much. So in more of the downtime where I'm not gearing up for competition, it's a little bit more about like learning new technique, kind of experimenting with things, growing in areas that I'm not as strong in. The weeks leading up to competition is much more about like, all right, what's my best strategy here? What's the rule set that I'm about to compete in?
Oh, that's so huge.
I know. It's definitely bitten me before. Like the transition of like a sub only compared to IBJJF, which is very points oriented. It's like, takes some time for me to adjust for sure.
I still can't, like, I'll find myself struggling with that too. Like how many points was that? Or like, it's just.
I know. It's a little frustrating because it's never consistent. Even when it is points based, it's like, well, on this rule set, you get 3 points. And that rule set, you get 2 points.
So what rule set do you prefer? Like which one have you found to enjoy the most or find success in?
That's a great question. There's something really fun about submission only type of tournaments or competition. Because I feel like it just it kind of frees you up just to do jiu-jitsu, and you're not thinking about, oh, like I can't let this person sweep me because they'll get 2 points, and then it's like this stalemate battle of, I don't know, kind of like weird strategy is the only way I can put it.
What you see on Instagram where people are pooping on jiu-jitsu.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So I think submission only lets you be a little bit faster pace almost, or take more risk, I'll say, because there's no points to think about. So
yeah, it's do or die.
Do or die, exactly.
So did you watch CJI?
I did. So I was actually there.
I was there.
Whoa, wait, no way.
Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, Vegas. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. Oh, man.
Dude, that's small world.
Yeah, crazy.
I loved it.
Man, it was so much fun. There's a group of friends. I'm trying to think. So do you know Denise and Morales? They train in the Strip District, both purple belts, husband, wife.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know them. I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were with us, and then a few other people that have trained at Stout at some point that I'm good friends with, but
There
live
were
just
Stout
like
people there?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
There was a
crazy.
group of us.
Small
I know,
world.
so small. But we've been to. I'm trying to think if this was our third ADCC that we've gone together. It's kind of like a friend trip we've done.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so obviously, like, we bought the ADCC tickets like whatever, a
So
year in
did we.
advance or something crazy.
So me and my buddy, he bought ADCC tickets.
Yeah.
And then CJ comes, he's like, which one you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I've never been to ADCC. I was like, but this is supposed to be hyped. Like,
Yeah.
So we ended up getting CJI tickets and then the ADCC Sunday pass and sold the other
Oh,
ones.
nice. Okay.
And then we didn't go to Sunday because me and this game called Blackjack.
Oh,
happened.
no. Oh, no. Sucked you in.
Yeah, oh man. I was like even, but hours just passed. I'm like, dude. He's like, what do we do?
Just
Do we go?
time
Do we miss it?
melts
I'm
away.
like, well, let's miss it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you have a gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLING.
There you go.
I think I'm required to say that. I don't know.
Probably. Yeah. So we did both.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We went to CJI was that Friday and Saturday.
Saturday,
Yeah. It was very exciting though.
What did you think about the whole setup from the rule set to the what they call it, the pit?
The pit.
The pit. I'll tell you what, that should be a regular thing. I just want to take a second to shout out a few companies who believed in me. These were one of our first official sponsors, so huge shout out. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Carbo Jewelers, established in 1997 on the values of honesty and integrity. Whether you're searching for the perfect piece, need expert repair services, visit Carbo Jewelers in Newark's Ironbound District, where your jewelry is always in safe hands. This episode is also brought to you by Continental Jewelers, proudly serving Hudson County, New Jersey since 1964. Whether you're seeking a timeless piece or need expert repairs, they've got you covered. Visit Continental Jewelers, your trusted source for all things jewelry. You can find them on Instagram at Carbo Jewelers or online at carbojewelers.com. Lastly, big shout out to Carbo Trading. Besides coins, precious metals, and jewelry, if it could be traded and collected, he's probably got it. They can be found on Instagram at carbo.trading. You can find all of our sponsors out online on our sponsor page at therelentlessproject.com.
Man, it was fun. So I feel like the atmosphere was great. Really good energy in like the venue. It's interesting. The competition I just did last weekend turned out that they used CJI rule set, so the 3 5-minute rounds. And it's funny, leading up to it, I was like, it's going to be so cool. And I was talking to Mike and a few other people at practice leading up to the weekend. And Mike's like, I don't know if I really like that rule set. And I was like, what? Like, he's like, the time.
Mike is
and I was like, like, tell me more. And he was like, if you think about it, especially for like the upper belt, so brown belt at IBJJF, you get 8 minutes for a match, black belt's 10 minutes. And he was like, the reason why you get so much time is like you're at that level where you need the time to work and actually get to a position where you can submit somebody. And I was like, I guess so. And literally that is what happened in my match over the weekend. It's like I would get right down to the 5 minutes and be in a good spot. And it's like, all right, time, reset. And you start back on the feet. So from an action perspective, I actually thought CJI being there, it felt pretty fast paced, which is exciting, but I see the point of like it just makes it a little bit harder at that level to
I think that was their goal.
Sub.
Their goal was to break the jiu-jitsu, I guess, stereotype, norm.
Yeah, I go back and forth because I feel like people strategize around the long matches too. It's like, all right, I'm gonna kind of take my time, feel this person out for like the first half of the match. And I get it from like a visual perspective. It's not the most exciting thing.
And like I had this conversation with people. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because as a consumer, as a someone watching it, I'm like, I like the fast pace. I like the action. Like But as a competitor, like I want to be methodical and strategize, and I want to win. Like the match with it's escaping me, but you know which one I'm talking about. It was one of the brothers and
Andrew Tackett.
Andrew Tackett. Like people almost fought each other over their match. Like, no, he won. No, he won. All he did was defend. It's like all he did was defend. He defended all the time. Like that's amazing. All the other dude did was attack, show action. Who's in the wrong? Who's in the right? Like, I'll tell you right now, I don't pull guard. For $1 million, I will lick the bottom of your feet.
Exactly, like, whatever it takes.
It's $1 million.
I know.
People are like, oh, but it was boring. I don't give a fuck to entertain you. I'm going for $1 million. Like, I'm looking out for me in this match. I'm not gonna do. Oh, I'm gonna try a seabird flip right now because I want to entertain I want to win $1 million. That's my goal.
Exactly.
So like I can see both sides of it, but in the organization aspect of entertainment, I think they did very well in the sense of, they created that action. Even the judges' scores in between rounds, I particularly enjoyed that.
I did think that was fun,
because I forget what match it was, but they punished a guy who was stalling, And there's no stalling. Like, there's no stalling in his rule set. But, like, you know, they awarded him with the first round. And then the crowd's booing it. And then in the second round, you notice the judges reversed the points. They essentially, like, punished him, like, hey, if you're going to keep doing this, you're not winning the round.
Yeah, it's like their way of saying, like, you know, pick up the pace. Yeah. So, like, let's see some action. Yeah,
it incentivizes you to push it a little bit.
Right.
Which could also cause you to be put in a disadvantaged position. So
yeah,
it's hit or miss. I want to see your thought process on, like, what rule set you prefer, because you get people who are like, no-gi. Actually, gi or no-gi? I got to ask that question.
No-gi.
That's fair. That's become the thing.
We'll see, though. I trained gi for the first time on Saturday, like, in months. Probably like 6 months or something. And I was like, all right, that's actually not too bad. So there could be a future, but for now, very much no-gi focused.
No-gi is the thing now. And
it's just fun.
I was so for the gi. And
Starting
then I started
out,
training no-gi, and I'm like, why am I wearing a robe that smothers me?
I know.
It's 2 against 1.
Exactly.
Like, this robe, I hated it.
It's hot. It's suffocating.
Yeah, but I loved it because if I grabbed your lapel, you're mine. Like, you're mine. You're not breaking my grip strength. I would literally hold you there, get up, or pull you in. Like, but also, it was the same for me. Like, if people grab me, I'm like, now I have to break grips and stuff. You don't really have that. You're forced to be more technical in the no-gi and forced to have movement, because unless you grab someone's, like, neck or trap, and then you're like go away.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how's your experience been being a woman in such a male-dominated sport industry? You know, I'm interested to see, like, what your experience has been like.
Yeah, it's been interesting. And as we were talking about earlier, I mentioned a thing that got me into competition was just not quite as many women at the gym at that point. And so I'm super excited about it. I feel like, thinking about where we are now to where when I started, how many more women at the gym at all locations. It's not like they're just in the strip district. Like, I can go to any of the 4 locations and there will be a good women's group, which is awesome. And I think it's important because it's interesting. I feel like starting out, maybe because I was in sports growing up, I didn't think of it necessarily all the time in the moment of, like, I'm the only woman in the room, or there's only a couple of us. But I do feel like our training just is different, and having other people who can kind of tell you about that is really helpful. So, for example, starting out, like, obviously white belt, early belts are really challenging. It's pretty much just like defending most of the time. Trying to even learn technique. Like, I don't know if you've been in the situation, I'm sure everybody has, where you've only made it through like halfway of the fundamentals curriculum, and you see a move in class and it's sort of like an open roll at the end, and you're like in positions, you're like, I don't even know what's going on right now. Like, I'm just letting people do stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, I'll be in a position, I'm like, I have 0 attacks from here.
Yep.
Americana.
Just jump on that. Yeah. It's good to have a go-to. Yeah. So, like, because of that, just like, and I don't blame guys. Like, I can see the other side of it where it's got to be hard. To your point earlier, where you're like, oh, I'm going to roll with this.
No, blame us. No, blame.
Well,
she's like, well, okay. Well, since you said it, all right.
All right, here we go. Yeah. I mean, there is like a separate skill in itself of being able to roll with different people of all sizes, of all genders, that is really tough starting out, because like, you just don't know the game enough to be able to kind of flow and like let people work. And so, especially as a woman, it's like, we're all at that lower level still trying to figure things out, and we don't necessarily have the advantage of strength or like just brute athleticism or explosion. And so I feel like the trajectory is just a little bit longer. I was thinking about this recently. I don't know if you like ski or snowboard.
I use a snowboard.
Okay. So I've heard, I skied growing up for a little bit, and they usually say like skiing, you can just like jump on skis and get down the hill. You might not be good. Like it takes a really long time.
Easier to learn, harder to master.
Exactly. I feel like that is how I see female jiu-jitsu compared to like male jiu-jitsu, where it's like, it's going to be really hard at the beginning because you just don't have the luxury of falling back on maybe strength or athleticism. And it just takes longer to find that success. But I feel like, especially seeing women come up through the gym and watching how their technique progresses, like there's going to be this tipping point where your technique is so solid and it's finally going to pay off. And so I think just having like others that have gone through that process and can kind of show there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I promise, like keep sticking with it, is really beneficial. Not like end all be all, but it's just nice to like see somebody that has gone through it and is now doing it, you know, as like a brown belt or a black belt. Like having Mary, very, very cool just to have like another female black belt at the gym. Because when we were coming up, and I think Mary talked about this in her black belt speech, it's like if you saw a purple belt woman, you're like, whoa, that's so cool. Like you've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
That is true. When you see, like back in the day, if you saw a purple belt anything, you're like,
yeah,
this
right.
dude's a ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
This chick's a ninja.
Crazy.
And like now it's like just out as a lot of purple belts. You're like, damn, purple belts, man. But no, it's interesting. And you mentioned something about I've never thought of it like that, but it makes sense. Like I think you don't have those things to fall back on.
Yeah.
I think what you have to fall back on is your brain, because I feel like women play more of a mind, like they're more mindful, more intentful in their jiu-jitsu, where guys, I'll speak for myself, like when I reach that like panic mode, it's like mind shut off. Now I'm just like shooting the kitchen sink at you.
Right.
Where I feel, in my experience, when I've rolled with women, they're less likely to resort to that mode, especially if you've been training. Obviously, if you're new, or panic sets in for a lot of people. But for someone who's been training for a while and that their mindset's in this training environment, they're less likely to resort to panic mode or just trying whatever. They're very technical in their approach. Yeah. Where I will just be like, I'll just fucking hold you here until I can breathe and then figure it out after. Like,
right.
That's what I've noticed. But I haven't thought about, how there is no flexibility. I'll give you that mobility.
Oh yeah. We got that going for us.
I hate when I roll with a woman and she turtles up. It's like a little block. There's no opening. I'm
Can't get in, right.
I just pick her off. Like that's all you can do. There's no openings. Like me, if I turtle up, it's a joke. Sadly, it's a joke. You could literally just put your, like, I can't squeeze
crunch
in and crunch that much. Like,
right.
You're just like, oh, okay, I'll just take your arm, or your neck's available. So like, that is a superpower, mobility and flexibility.
Yeah.
How have you seen the dynamics of the gym change, like with a lot of women coming in?
That's a great question. I feel like, so there's a couple of things that come to mind. Hopefully it feels like there's more of a space for people, especially women, to want to continue training. I feel like whenever I was starting out, there is kind of like that initial hurdle, and I feel like it's not only the blue belt blues, but like white belt as well, where you see people come for like maybe 6 months and then you just never see them again, which I get. Like there's obviously life things that come up to you. Maybe it's just not for you, but I think what's cool now is that, like I was mentioning, you can go to any gym, and I feel like pretty much any class I go to now, there's at least one or two other women that having a partner to train with just makes it that much easier. And I'm sure it's like I would imagine the case for anybody. Like if you were to show up and the whole class is like, I don't know, 300-pound guys, it's just like a different type of training. And it's going to be a little bit harder. And like, it's not even like their fault. It's just certain body types, being able to learn on is like.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to roll with someone who's a lot smaller and
on the other end too,
and taller.
Right?
Like it's hard to roll with someone like that. And then I've noticed, like, I feel like I'm doing, like, I'll get paired with, I'm 230 pounds, maybe 225 because I didn't eat breakfast this morning. But so I tend to, and I lift. I love to lift. I love to train. Like, strength is an advantage that I have. So when I roll with someone who doesn't have that advantage, like, I can take shortcuts. So I'm less leaning on jiu-jitsu and more leaning on just controlling this person how I want and then figuring it out. Now, when I roll with someone my size with similar experience, I don't get that luxury.
Yeah.
So when I roll with someone my size, and then on the contrary, I got paired with someone who was way bigger than me, way stronger than me, and I hated it. I was like, is this how I make people feel? Because I feel like a douchebag now. Like, it's
tough.
Sucked.
It's really tough. Yeah. And so, I don't know, especially starting out, just like doubles down on how hard it is. It's like, you want to have at least a couple of classes, where you feel like you're progressing. I feel like that's true for competition too. And I feel very fortunate right now because we have even more female competitors, which is awesome. And having that look leading up, it's like thinking back to earlier days when I was competing, having mostly male training partners, not that it's a bad thing, but like just getting your butt kicked can be a little bit of a bummer leading up to a competition. And so having more realistic looks with other female training partners is really exciting. I also think too, it can be a little bit intimidating. It's funny when you were telling your story about like one of the first times training at Stout, slab bump, it's like time to break. We learned the technique and you have to find a partner. It's like the gym class experience a little bit. You look around, everyone's partnered up, and then it's just you two, you and that girl that's like, all right, guess we're doing this. Like, I have had that experience so often where
that's because no one wants to roll with you. Like, I don't want to get beat up today. Let me find someone else. And you're like,
that's probably the truth now. But starting out for sure, like white belt, blue belt, it's like kind of last kid picked in class, especially if there's not another woman. And I can kind of get it. I actually asked, so old job I had, one of my coworkers also happened to train at Stout. And I remember after a practice one day, I asked him, I was like, does this happen to you? I feel like I'm always like the last person picked in class. I never have a partner. And he was like, well, first off, I'm sorry about that. Like, if you ever need a partner, just let me know. But he was also a little bit of a bigger dude. And I think he was like,
and you're like, no, I don't,
the matchup.
I don't want to be your partner. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. But he was like, from our perspective, I think it's kind of maybe what you were thinking. It's like, do you want to be the person that picks the one girl every time to train with? And it's a little bit of like, I don't know, looking at it from both sides of, I don't know. Like, I can see
you
it
can
being
say it
tough
here.
as well.
You can say it here. Whatever. This is open platform. Yeah. Like, but every gym has that person who picks they shy away from the competition.
Yeah.
They shy away, and you're like, what are you telling yourself? Like, are you even pushing yourself? Not that training with a girl is not pushing yourself, but pick someone your body type.
Yeah.
Like someone that is going to be an even exchange. And that goes with experience too, right? If I'm a brown belt and I have another 230-pound dude, but he's a white belt, like it's the same thing. You're not picking to push yourself. You're not picking to, and also not push yourself, but give them an honest, good look too.
Yeah. That's the point I was going to add on is like, I remember I did one of the like Costa Rica camps that Warren sets up. And
those look so cool.
It was awesome. I had such a great time. Sean Williams typically I think goes to those every year as well. So he was teaching the year I was down there, and he talked about a really great point, which I think is what you were just getting at, which is like kind of regardless of where you fall, like size wise or skill wise, it's important. And I think it'll help like everybody's jiu-jitsu is being able to adjust how you roll based off of the person you're rolling with. So in theory, you should be able to roll with anybody in the gym, whether they're 125-pound female or like the biggest dude in the room, because there's things that you can adjust. And if you're actually thinking about the things you're trying to get better at, focusing on those and letting the person work, but maybe like, I'm just going to work on my open guard today and I'm going to let them like give me some good pass looks, or maybe I want to work on retention and I'm going to let them pretty much get to side control, but I just want to focus on seeing if I can get my guard back. And it doesn't have to be a brawl every time, which is a little bit of a hard mental shift. Like as the competitive person, there are times where I'm like,
Smash.
oh, but I want to win. I want to
Smash.
But there are ways, and I think it, again, will benefit you too if you can also figure out how to adjust your game for the person that you're rolling with.
That comes with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And that's something I've developed, I don't want to say recently because I haven't trained since March 17th. Because
Sad.
of sad.
Was it a jiu-jitsu injury or?
So it was I won't say the company because it's not their fault at all, and I don't want to. But it was one of those law enforcement jiu-jitsu training.
Yeah. Okay.
5-day courses. Amazing. I will say the class because I'm shouting about EFC. It was EFC
Nice.
with Jay Wadsworth. Phenomenal course.
Yeah.
The reason I got injured was a mixture of just bad place, bad time. It was a 3-on-1. The one dude came. He went for, I don't know if he was going for a single or double. He barely got the single. I stuffed him, held him down. So he's like holding my leg to then get my other leg and collapse my base, which is what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Well, I base out, which is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe what you're supposed to do when it's one person. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then this other dude comes and I underhook him, kind of hip bump him, and now I'm holding him down. And then the third dude just comes. So he's holding my right leg on the ground. He's holding the back of the heel. And this dude comes and like dives into my knee and just knee went, foot didn't. And
yeah.
so it was just there's a bunch of fuckery happening at the same time, like fluke accident. But yeah, it was during one of the training events. It was the last day.
Oh no, of course it was.
So
right.
I'm glad I made it. Got my certificate, finished the class
Nice.
too. And next day I woke up and it was swollen. And
Not good.
then I had to drive 6 hours back to Pittsburgh.
No, hopefully not your right leg. Man.
It was an interesting
That's
trip.
brutal. Oh,
it
yeah.
It was an interesting trip. Luckily, from the drive from Jersey to PA is like one road, one highway.
Yeah.
But I'm like holding on to my because even just
like stabilizing your leg. Oh my God.
even just letting it fall, like excruciating. And I'm being and my sergeant's like, you need to go to the ER right now. I ain't going to the ER in New York or New Jersey.
Yeah,
like I'll go when I get
first.
back. Like,
Right.
Like I could not. This is TMI, but I couldn't even use the bathroom because I could not walk, and I pee a lot when I'm on a road trip. Sorry, but and I could not walk to the bathroom.
Oh man,
I would get out to fill the car.
Oh no,
and then I'd like crawl back in, and I'm just like, of course this would happen to me. Why? Like, of course this would happen, but I don't know how I got onto that tangent.
No, it's right. I think
But training. Training.
Right.
How important is it to build that community and have like mentorships? You mentioned a few people who've kind of like pushed you to compete and push you to and go with you to these competitions. How important is it to build that community in the jiu-jitsu community?
Yeah, I think it's really important. One thing that I like about Stout is maybe I'll say we're well-rounded. Like I think it's awesome that there's the Muay Thai group, there's the Jiu-Jitsu group, there's MMA, there's the self-defense stuff. So you can kind of get a little flavor of everything based off of what your goals are for being there. And just like being able to build that up for everybody is really awesome. I think we're probably unique, honestly, not even just in Pittsburgh, but like nationally, and the number of people that we have and the different types of experiences you can get at Stout. And it feels like we're at a point now, I think it's kind of always been this way in some regard, but being a little bit smaller, it does kind of feel like you have to carve out your own path if you have a unique goal. But now we're at a point where I feel like you have representation of people that have done the thing and you can learn from. So if there are people that want to compete at a high level of jiu-jitsu, like there are people in the room that have done it and can be that mentor for you. I'm sure it's like the same for a lot of other elements. Like the MMA team is huge now. It's super exciting, like how active it is, especially thinking about when I started, kind of towards the end, I'll say, of like Mike Wilkins' career. And then there was a little bit of a drop off where I feel like there weren't too many MMA competitors, but now it's huge. It's really exciting to see.
No, cards are like 5, 6.
Yeah, I know.
Fighters,
like half the team. Right. Yeah, so I don't know. I've been really excited about it. I feel like the next few years in particular are going to be awesome. And from a competitive perspective, too, I think it'll be cool to hopefully see us on a bigger stage. Like, I genuinely think that we have incredible coaches, incredible instruction, and to be able to show that off at like a national level is really exciting. Like, hey, we're on the map. Like, check out Pittsburgh, you know?
It is. It's interesting. We were, when I was at CJI, Tap Cancer Out was one of the sponsors.
Oh yeah.
Which we're doing their world roll.
Okay.
Via the Relentless Project. We're doing it at Stout.
Oh, no way.
So you pick a partner, you donate, you pick a partner, and you roll for an hour.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Oh, it's going to be an all-day event. We're working on it, but I'll release more information on that. But story about Tap Cancer. So I ended up reaching out to Tap Cancer Out while I'm at CJI. I'm like, oh, this would be a great organization to partner with. Like, you know, I have a friend who passed away because of cancer recently, and then another one who is battling cancer.
Yeah.
So it's like this would hit home for me. I love jiu-jitsu. I fucking hate cancer. Like, perfect organization to partner up with. So I reach out to them, right? And then the dude, I guess the president or whatever reaches back out. He's like, hey, busy weekend. Like, we could link up this week. And I'm like, oh, totally understand. I just, in my mind, I was like, I just wanted to shoot my shot. Like,
yeah.
Right? Well, he ends up messaging me a little bit later. He's like, actually, like, what section are you in? We can talk right now. Like,
oh, nice.
I was like, oh, dope. So we end up linking up, and I'm talking to him, and he's like, oh, where would you like host? Like, where would you host this? I was like, oh, you know, a gym up in Pittsburgh. I train at Stout. He's like, Stout PGH? Warren? I'm like, that's the one.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, dude, they actually helped us do like one years ago during COVID. And I'm like, small fucking world. But like Stout is everywhere. Yeah. Cause as soon as I said, he's like, oh yeah, well, Warren? Yeah, no, totally. I'm like, oh damn, yeah, that's where I'm gonna be doing it at if you want to partner. So now we're partnered up.
There you go.
That's crazy. The things this gym is doing, and all the local gyms, right? Like,
yeah.
My daughter just called me randomly.
Oh.
Well, we're in the mid podcast. No, but all the things local gyms are doing is it's phenomenal. Like, the jiu-jitsu is just growing. How do you balance all this jiu-jitsu competing and then your career in the user experience industry? I can assume both of those are very demanding.
Yeah. Schedule, routine is very helpful.
Wait, you follow a schedule?
I know, it's crazy.
People are like, I don't just live by the seat of my pants. No.
Yep.
You should see my calendar. Everything's like
planned out.
You have to. Rest also planned.
There you go. I'm not that good, I will say. But
it's like you were expecting something, you ain't get it.
But yeah, sounds kind of simple, I guess, but the routine is really a big thing. I know I have my 9 to 5 and try and like give my all for that. And then outside of that, I can kind of build my own schedule. And so trying to stick to a particular training routine just like adds up, just like putting in the time. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's like trying to think about balance, a little bit of just feeling it out as I go, which might sound contradictory to routine, but if I do have moments where I'm like, I'm just feeling a little bit burnt out, not being afraid.
You want to have flexibility in that schedule.
Have a flexibility, exactly. And same kind of goes for work too. Like there are times where it's much more demanding, and so I have to kind of like ramp down on jiu-jitsu a bit. But I kind of try and calibrate that so that it's more on my off season. Like right now, I sort of consider end of the year being competitive season for me because it's more no-gi oriented. And so, just trying to like plan ahead as best I can, know when one thing needs to be more demanding than the other, and just trying to like figure out a way to, I don't know, give what I can to jiu-jitsu when I have the opportunity to and capitalize on it, because with work fluctuating and just like life in general, it's not always a guaranteed that I'll be able to go and train tomorrow. So when I do have that chance, it's like, let's try and maximize it,
Yeah, all or nothing.
Yeah.
Do or die.
Right.
I get told I'm a little, is it dramatic? We'll go with dramatic.
All right.
I don't know if that's the right word, but like, that's how I approach a lot of things. It's like, it's do or die. Like, we're going all in or not.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I'm asking you what you want from Chipotle. Like, I'm just like, nah, dude, we're going in.
Yeah.
Like, it's because like that is life, right? It's either you will or you won't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you try and you fail. Okay, you didn't do it. Boom.
Yep.
You try and you succeed. You did it. You will. You try, fail, continue trying, and then you get it. That's I will. Like if you simplify things, it's either you want to or you don't. And sometimes it changes, like I want to, nothing's changed, and that's fine, that's okay. But I'm very passionate. Passion is the word.
There
Dramatic
you go.
Also, but passionate is the word I was going for. Puerto Rican, so both can live with each other.
Yep.
I'm very passionate about things. Like it could be the stupidest things or the craziest things. Like it's just passionate. So when I meet someone, like me and my daughter were at a fast food restaurant the other day, taking her through the drive-thru. Yeah, I got my daughter fast food. No, but this lady's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" Like on the intercom, and
Super
her energy
jazzed.
was like
Through
infectious,
the roof.
like to the point where I'm like, dude, and my daughter's like, I like her. Like she's super nice. You've never met her. You don't even know what she looks like. Not that any of that matters, but like you have zero information on this person, and you're like, I like her. But it's like your energy is. It can be like, so that's that they have a passion of some sorts that is translating to the job they're doing.
Yeah.
Like they're just doing and you can tell when someone is passionate, has purpose because of how they approach the mundane, right? Like at the end of the day, not to take away from, like she's taking an order from a drive-thru. At the end of the day, you're working at this job or this job, like, but that's not who you are.
Yeah.
Like that's not who you are. Who you are, there's so many complexities and levels to it. It's like you can tell when someone has a passion for something and they found their purpose and they're pursuing it based on how they approach anything.
Everything.
Everything.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's infectious.
I get to the window and she's like, "How are you?" I'm like, I'm
doing
fucking
great
fantastic.
now,
How
yeah.
are you? She's like, "I'm here. You're here." I'm like,
It's a good day.
I'm like,
right.
I'm nobody to you, but yes, I am here. Like that exchange made my entire day.
Yeah.
But like something so simple as just her having good energy, but like she was passionate about something. If I could have had a podcast episode right there, I would have like,
Right.
welcome to the
Set it
Relentless
up, right.
Project. Like, what fires you up today? But she's probably like, I won the lottery for $1 million. I'm like, oh, okay.
Checks out.
All right, that makes sense. But yeah, passion, very passionate. And you seem to have this little fuel, and we're kind of like talking before this episode, and you actually mentor design students at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how does that fit into your like goals for what you want to do and what you're doing with your career, and like what does that mentorship mean to you to be able to give back to that?
So a couple of things. Design can be kind of cutthroat. It's just like hard to break into, I would say.
It's very niche.
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people that are interested in it, but not a ton of roles, I would say. And so I think back to my first full-time job when I moved back to Pittsburgh, didn't have anything lined up, and just went to like this networking event thing, which was like totally out of my element, and happened to meet this one woman who like a couple weeks later posted a job for a UX designer. And so I applied, didn't hear anything back, but I used like one of those like ZipRecruiter things or whatever. And so when you submit your resume or apply for the job, it will tell you if the hiring manager looked at your application. And so I logged in one day and it was like, they've looked at it and still crickets. And I was like, oh man. And at that point, it's definitely a scary point in your life. It's like, it's disheartening. I had just graduated. Like, I was like, I gotta make money. Like, this is kind of stressful. And so I found her on LinkedIn, messaged her. I was like, hey, I applied. She was like, let's grab coffee. And that kind of spun into an interview, ended up getting the job. And she was like, yeah, until you reached out to me, I honestly like wasn't going to consider even interviewing you. And I was like, ouch. Oh man. But the cool thing is she like, I think appreciated that I reached out. She got to know me a little bit more one-on-one. And then as I joined that, kind of like first job, she very much mentored me. And I kind of always saw her as kind of sticking her neck out for me a little bit. Like I knew other people had applied that were probably more qualified, but she, I guess, saw something in me and very much helped me for that first, like, honestly, full year. Like I look back and I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing. She gave me a lot of grace, really helped me like coach and bring my skill level up to actually be probably qualified for that job. And so for me, and I think it's actually really similar in jiu-jitsu, it's like there's a certain point where initially you kind of have to take, like you don't really know much and people are going to be helping you out, and at some point you'll be called to do the same thing. And so being able to like help out people and extend what was extended to me, I feel like is very important, whether that's like professionally or in jiu-jitsu. So about like 4 years ago, I want to say, an alumni group at Virginia Tech formed basically like a mentorship program. And it's like, hey, you can sign up and we'll partner you with a senior that's working on their capstone project. And you just like check in with them once a week and like give them feedback and help them kind of like get on the right course so they can present it at the end of the semester. So it's like a really easy thing. Like you're dedicating maybe like an hour a week, but I think it really helps. And it's like kind of getting them set up for their first job too. No,
that's cool. You mentioned you take in the beginning. We do. We take. And then once we get there, it's like, I know you guys are on your own. Like, I feel like that's kind of some people's outlook on things. And it's kind of sad. It's like, yeah, you were that person and you wanted all the help and all the attention and all the knowledge and all the experience and all. And like the least you can do is just pass it on, pass it through.
Right,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. And how has that mentorship been? Like, have you, like, you bring them to jiu-jitsu? No, okay. we have 1 hour. We're rolling.
Here we go.
But, like, that's cool that you get to kind of circle back and give back to that community of, because you've been there, you've done that, and you can. I had a mentor in college, Matt Brzee. I'll shout that dude out every day. He was president of the Erie Bayhawks before they got bought and moved, but honestly, he was a good trajectory in my life. Like and the only reason I got that was because I was an inner city Puerto Rican troubled youth. So like, I got paired with him, and I was like, dude, this is so cool. I got open up to a whole new world, and I was like, that's something I try to encompass too. When people come up to me, and some people will be like, why do you always help people? It's like, why do you not? Like, if I gain nothing from it, I help someone. That's a win.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If they take advantage of it, I did what I enjoyed. I helped someone. I enjoy it. Like, it brings me joy.
Exactly.
It's not what I get from it. What I get from it is joy.
Right.
Whether they take advantage of it, sucks for you, not for me. Sucks for you. Or if they turn around and do something with it and give back or pass it on, like, that's multiple joy.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, for me, it feels like a two-way street, where I honestly feel like I get as much out of it or learn from the people I mentor as I feed back into it, if that makes sense. It's like,
no, it totally makes sense, because that's what I do with this podcast. Like, I want to hear people's stories. Hopefully it gives people a platform when someone listening to your story who's been in your shoes, and they're like, how many times people have come to me and messaged me, they're like, I just listened to this episode. Oh my God. Like, I'm like, oh, that is so awesome that I can like connect these two.
Yeah.
Someone just reached out. I had a guy on here who trains churches, like security for churches. He also trains like civilians and firearms. And I had someone message me, and they're like, hey, I have a group of women who want to purchase firearms, but they don't want to purchase until they train they learn from the beginning. They've never had a gun. They want to know how to, well, I don't know if I can say, they never had a blicky for them. So they want to be comfortable with it and proficient with it, so they feel safe carrying it.
Yeah.
Well, who did I put them on? I'm like, well, actually, there was this guy on here who trained. Yeah, so I connected them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's crazy how everything comes full circle. If you move with the right intention, you move with good intention and honesty and integrity, and you just like you want good for the world, things just fall into place. I can't explain it. Like,
I think so too.
I'm in this studio because of a guest I had on here who knew someone who owns this building, who told me to reach out. Like, everything just is connected. You're here because of my relationship with Britt. Like, we were cool. And she's like, and your relationship with Britt, and she's like, oh, you need to have her on. She's cool. Well, I trust Britt's word because of our relationship, our friendship. So I'm like, if you think she should be on, let's fucking put her on.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all full circle.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like, you obviously can't plan life. I think you can just be prepared for it. And so if you're like just doing what you need to do, things will fall into place for sure.
Hey, that's a fucking quote if I ever heard one.
There we go.
What advice would you give to people listening to this who maybe want to get into jiu-jitsu and they're hesitant, or want to get into the user experience industry but they're hesitant, or they're reaching a point where, like, I don't know if I can do this? Like, what advice would you give them?
That's a great question. I think from a jiu-jitsu perspective, honestly, sometimes just having a buddy to try it out with is like such a level up. I filled in for Mary in the women's class that she teaches on Sunday, maybe a couple of months ago. And these two like college women were like, yeah, we're like best friends. And we just decided, like, I held you accountable to go do this. Like, you told me you were interested in trying a class. I'll go do it with you, and like, let's get after it. And I think they're still going. I mean, they've at that time have been going for like a couple of weeks, I think. But For me personally, I am very much motivated by being held accountable, like other people externally, I don't want to let down. And so maybe it's a question of like what motivates you. Are you like internally driven and like I just need to go out there and do it and put it on my calendar and I'm good? Or do you need like an accountability partner, which is very much in my lane, like knowing that I don't want to drop the ball for this person is a great thing to kick things off for me to then like kind of build the confidence and go out and continue doing it. So maybe that's a place to start. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's a good way to look at it. If you're internally motivated versus actually motivated, find a friend who's gonna not let you forget.
Exactly. Yep.
Where can people follow you if they want to kind of follow your journey in jiu-jitsu? You're competing at a high level or want to reach out to you based off this episode. Where can people follow you if they
Instagram would probably be the best place. I'll admit I'm the worst at posting. I'll post some stories, so I feel like I've gotten better about like competition wise if something's coming up, posting that way. But yeah, follow me on Instagram and reach out on Instagram too. If it's more of like a professional thing, honestly, you can use Instagram for whatever. But if you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn.
Hey, that's the first LinkedIn plug.
Yeah, there we go.
I have a LinkedIn. I haven't even logged in probably 8 months.
I have such mixed feelings about it because it's kind of turned into like a professional Facebook. But
yeah, every time I log in, I'm just like, thanks for anniversary. Thanks for anniversary. Thanks for. It's like I get like 1,000, and I'm like, what am I anniversarying?
It's ridiculous. But yeah, if you need someone to connect with professionally, I would say reach out on there too. So
dope. And I got a question that I want to start asking. Yeah. That I asked the fighters in their post-fight interviews.
Okay.
But I'm going to tailor it to the podcast. When the lights are off, the cameras are shut off, everyone's gone, and it's just you. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to be remembered for?
It's interesting. I feel like people often think about a legacy, and it hasn't been something that's crazy important to me for some reason, in the sense of like being famous, if that makes sense. But I feel like I think it ties back to community, have helped even just like one person, that is kind of good enough for me, honestly. Like I've always been sort of like close with my family, like enjoy small groups of friends, enjoy the close community I'm around. And so it doesn't have to be super grand or anything. Just want to like make someone's day better, I guess. It's really simple.
No, that's awesome. And I asked this question because, and I say it, when the lights are off, cameras are off, right? Because a lot of us put a performance on, especially in social media, right? And you're fighting, right? You're a fighter. Mm-hmm. You're performing. You're entertaining. Like there's a crowd there for a reason. If not, it would be you and your competitor in a locked room, and then you come out, hey, I won. So I asked because that question, that answer can tell you a lot about someone's motivations and their goals and what drives them, right? Like I asked this question and I want to be the best fighter in the world. That's a valid goal. Yeah. Like to each their own, right? Like that. Are you doing things to align with that? Cool.
Yep.
I asked this one fighter and I was like, what do you want to be remembered by? He goes, introducing people to Jesus Christ. And I was like, oh.
That's great. Yeah.
Like, yours. Or someone else's was like, just always being there when someone needed someone.
Yeah.
Like it's like, that's what you want to be remembered for. That speaks a lot about how you move, right? Like, you probably move with the best of intentions because your goal is to be a resource for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I sometimes listen to Tim Ferriss's podcast, and there was a guest he had on recently. I think her name's Elizabeth Gilbert. She's the author.
I was going to say, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think she wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which I never read or saw the movie. And I saw the episode and I was like, that's like interesting. I don't really know why she would be on. Maybe a little judgmental, but the episode was like one of the best I've heard in a long time. And to tie this back into the question you asked, something that she mentioned that really stuck with me was like, you know, whether it's you believe in God or like the universe, the purpose that you were put on this earth to do can be very simple. And she told this story about how she was like walking down the street one day and saw this guy up on a ladder painting the outside of his business. And the ladder was like really unstable. So she went over and just held the ladder for him for maybe like 5-10 minutes. He like started getting down and she just walked away. He didn't realize that she held the ladder for him, but it was kind of like her good deed. And this thought experiment of like, what if that was my purpose for being on this earth, was literally just to help that guy out for this one day. And I think it's kind of like makes it easier when you think about it. It doesn't have to be, personally, I think, some big grand thing, but like small acts are just as powerful.
Well, you ever heard of the butterfly effect?
I don't know if I have.
So I think it's called the butterfly effect. It's essentially this theory, the butterfly theory. I think the butterfly effect was a movie, maybe. But there's this theory that if a butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, that can have an effect to what happens over here. Right? And like, I'm the type of dude who I hold doors open. If someone needs help, I offer it immediately, even if it's inconvenient to me. Because again, I find enjoyment in it, but like as a kid, that is the person I needed so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I try to move in a way like, be the person you needed as a kid.
I like
Be
that.
the person you needed when you're having the worst day of your life. Like, who did you need to show up?
Yeah.
Be that person. Because during our toughest times, it's so easy to go, man, where is this person? Why can't I do? But we don't become that person in our best of times for someone else. And it's like, it's almost unfair to be like, to demand something when you're not willing to be that thing you're demanding when you can be.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and I think too, you could take the example you gave of like the drive-through lady, or even, I think about soccer coaches I have, like, even though maybe I'm not connected with them today, like certain people in your life, even through small moments, that'll last with you. And I think like is the thing that shows up in those moments where you're like, I really need something to lean on. Maybe I don't actually have a physical person here to reach out to, but those memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like, I'm sure she's probably at work right now, not thinking of me, but right. I just told her story here.
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy how people can be a positive impact in the world. That's what we're ending with. Be positive impact in the world. Leave it better than how you found it. That's a pet peeve of mine is like, well, you're not any better. You're not doing any better to the situation. Like, you hate how this person approached the situation, then you approach it better.
Yeah.
And approach that person better. Exactly. Sometimes I'm petty. Sometimes I'll be down. But I'm not
Every
perfect.
once in a while, they need it.
I just have to, that's the caveat. But I appreciate you for jumping on.
Yeah,
it's been an amazing conversation. I'm excited for this one because I have I don't want to say a lot of, but there's a lot of women who listen to my podcast, and they pull things from it, but like they're forced to listen to like different variety. Yeah. So I think a lot of the women who listen will be able to connect with your story, because you're like, you do a lot, and like I've had some reach out like, I don't know how to. I've had some reach out to me about getting started with jiu-jitsu, and I tell them like, we have a woman's only class. Like, if you're uncomfortable, like that's the best way to get into it, because all these women started how you like probably felt how you felt. Like, this is a good group of girls to connect with. Like, But it's like I'm not in that element too. Like people are like, why don't you have more women on your podcast? It's like I'm a 230-pound bearded tattooed guy. Unless they listen to the podcast, they don't know who I am. So it's like, hey, I like your story. You trying to come on the podcast? No, creep, leave me alone. Like, you know, so I never know how to approach it. So like, I appreciate you for jumping on. Fun, awesome story. I was going to say phenomenal story, but I couldn't think of the word. It's early.
You got it.
We started this at 6 a.m., folks.
We did. What time is it now?
8:02, just
No
on
way.
time.
And we were saying there's no way to go this long.
And I told
but there you go.
We're hour 50 mark. I'm telling you. You're like, I won't have much to talk about. Yeah. Okay. Here we are.
Know.
Great stuff.
Once you get me going. Yep.
Hey, well, I appreciate you jumping on. This is the one with
Yeah.
Claire
Thanks for having me.
Butterfield, and we're out. Later.